Have you ever felt, well, a little lost in your career? I mean, you're doing all the right things, you're moving up, but there's this quiet feeling that something's just off, that the passion you started with has kind of faded. It's a crisis of purpose, and honestly, it happens to so many of us. Today, we're diving into the story of a leader who didn't just hit that wall. He used it as the literal foundation for a framework that would change how we think about leadership forever. This is the story of Simon Sinek and how he turned his own personal pressure into a global blueprint for purpose.
Just let that sink in for a second. This whole thing didn't start with some brilliant idea in a fancy boardroom. Nope. It started from a place of total failure, of personal pain. It was from that rock bottom that one of the most powerful leadership ideas of our time was actually born. His desperate search for his own why, for a way to pull himself out of that darkness, ended up becoming a search for a universal truth about what makes us tick.
So how did he do it? How do you go from total burnout to a global phenomenon? Well, we're going to follow his exact path. We'll start with the crisis of why he was facing. Then we'll tag along on his search for patterns, where he looked to history for clues. That's going to lead us right to the heart of it all, the golden circle philosophy. But an idea is just an idea, right? So we'll see how he turned it into real systems for building trust. Then we'll zoom out and look at the full transformation, from burnout to blueprint. And, most importantly, we'll wrap up with your turn to start, so you can actually use these ideas yourself. All right, so let's start where he started, at the very bottom. You really have to get this part to understand the rest. Sinek's whole framework wasn't some intellectual exercise. It was forged in the fire of a real, painful crisis, the realization that his work, his life, had completely lost its meaning. And that's the absolute core of it. This wasn't about revenue or market share. It was a complete failure of spirit. He had lost his why. And look, I'm pretty sure most of us have felt a version of this at some point, right? That slow-motion disillusionment when the daily grind just feels totally disconnected from anything that matters. It's way more than just a bad day at work. It's a soul-crushing kind of pressure. For Sinek, that pressure was the very thing that forced him to ask the biggest question of his life.
So this personal crisis, it actually set him on a totally new mission. He basically stopped running his business and became obsessed with figuring out what went wrong. And this wasn't just him navel-gazing, it was a disciplined, systematic search for real answers. A search that was fueled by his burnout in the very field he was supposed to be an expert in, marketing.
He looked at the marketing world and realized it was all just noise. This endless focus on features, benefits, price, it felt like a game of manipulation. Just short-term tactics to get a sale, not build any kind of real loyalty. He realized the problem wasn't the product. It was that most companies were terrible at explaining why they even existed in a way that people could connect with. So, he threw out the playbook. He completely abandoned conventional thinking and started digging into history, studying the greatest leaders and movements to find the common thread, the one pattern that explained genuine inspiration. And after all that searching, all that digging, he found it. A single, beautiful idea that explained everything. This thing isn't just a diagram you draw on a whiteboard. It's basically a map of human inspiration. It's a philosophy that shows us exactly why we follow some people and completely ignore others. This is the golden circle. What Sinek figured out was that almost every organization on the planet knows what they do. Some of them know how they do it differently, but very, very few can clearly explain why they do it. And that why has nothing to do with making money, that's just a result. The why is your purpose, your cause, your belief. He discovered that every single inspiring leader and organization, no matter what, communicates from the inside of this circle out. And here's the kicker. This lines up perfectly with how our brains are built. The what talks to our rational brain, the part that handles facts and figures. But the why and how speak directly to our limbic brain, the part that controls our feelings, our trust, and all of our decision-making. Let's break this down real quick, because the order is everything. The why is the core belief. For a company like Apple, it's about challenging the status quo. For Martin Luther King Jr., it was a dream of equality. He didn't give the "I have a plan" speech, right? The how are the actions you take to make that belief real. For Apple, that means making products that are beautifully designed and simple to use. And finally, the what is the result. The iPhones, the MacBooks, those are just the tangible proof of Apple's why.
And this just lays out the difference perfectly. Most companies talk from the outside in. They say, we make great computers, they're beautifully designed and easy to use. Want to buy one? It appeals to our logic, but it doesn't really inspire us. Inspired leaders flip it. They talk from the inside out. Apple says, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we do that is by making products that are beautifully designed and simple to use. We just happen to make great computers. Want to join us? See the difference? One is a sales pitch. The other is a declaration of identity. It builds a loyal tribe.
Now, the golden circle doesn't just exist on its own. It's propped up by two other huge ideas. The first is the circle of safety. This is what happens when everyone shares the same why. The leader's job becomes protecting the team from internal threats, like politics and fear, so they can focus all their energy outward on the real challenges. The second is the infinite game. Think about it. A finite game like football has set rules and a clear winner and loser. But business, leadership, those are infinite games. The players come and go, the rules can change, and there's no winning. The goal is just to stay in the game, to keep playing for the long haul.
Okay, so this is all a really beautiful philosophy, right? But Sinek was smart. He knew that a philosophy without a system is just a nice idea that collects dust on a shelf. For this to actually work, purpose can't just be a poster on the wall. It has to be baked into the daily routines of an organization through real, actionable systems that build clarity and human connection.
The first system is called the Clarity Protocol, and it's how you actually discover your why. And listen to those words, rigorous and systematic. This is not some fluffy, feel-good workshop. It's more like an archaeological dig into the history of your company, or even your own life. You're searching for the moments that really mattered, the stories that make you proudest, the patterns of what drove you. You're brushing away the dust to find the real bedrock of your purpose.
So how does it actually work? Well, you collect all these core stories, you put them all together, and you look for the theme, the common thread running through all of them. From there, you craft a simple, clear why statement. And this is the most important part. That statement becomes your ultimate filter for every decision. Imagine your company's why is to empower creative expression. Well, if you get offered a big contract to build accounting software, the filter says no. It might make money, but it's not who you are. It forces you to be disciplined about your purpose.
The second system is the circle of safety mandate. And that word choice is so important. This isn't a policy you can just write down. It's a mandate. It's a fundamental duty of being a leader. It means leaders have to consistently and intentionally act in ways that build trust. That means being vulnerable, admitting when you're wrong, and putting the well-being of your people ahead of the short-term numbers.
What this looks like in the real world is a leader creating a protective bubble around their team, not a physical one, but one made of trust. It's built by choosing human connection over spreadsheets, by having the guts to be honest even when the news is bad. It's about taking the blame and giving away the credit. When a leader does this, they're not just being nice. They are literally creating the conditions for their team to take risks, innovate, and do their absolute best work.
So let's just pause for a second and appreciate the incredible journey here. We're going to shift gears from the framework itself to the guy who built it and the amazing legacy he created by turning his biggest failure into a gift for all of us.
I mean, this timeline says it all. In 2008, he's at rock bottom. Just a year later, that pain fuels this incredible discovery. That's the spark. By 2011, his TED Talk goes absolutely viral. The Start With Why book comes out, and the idea is codified for the world. The fire spreads. And today, his framework isn't some niche idea. It's a standard tool used by leaders everywhere. It's an absolutely stunning journey from personal burnout to a global blueprint.
And here's the real takeaway from his story. His legacy is that he took something that feels like magic, inspiration, trust, loyalty, and he made it systematic. Before Sinek, we thought those were just personality traits. You were either a charismatic leader or you weren't. His genius was proving that inspiration isn't an art, it's a skill. It's a system you can learn, practice, and master. He showed that having a clear mission isn't just a nice to have, it is the single most powerful competitive advantage you can possibly have.
Okay, and this right here is the most important part of our whole conversation. We've talked about the story, the philosophy, the systems, but now it's about taking all that and putting it into action in your world, your life, your team, your company.
Let's just come back to this one more time. This is true for absolutely everything. We don't follow the manager with the best job title. We follow the leader who has a clear purpose. We don't stay loyal to the company with the lowest prices. We stay loyal to the one whose mission we actually believe in. It's the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. So here's your action plan. It's simple. First, try the Clarity Protocol. Seriously, take 30 minutes this week, sit down and write down 3 stories from your life when you felt genuinely proud and fulfilled. What's the common thread? That's the start of your why. Second, use that why as a filter. The next time you have a decision to make, ask yourself, does this align with my why? If it doesn't, have the guts to say no. And third, consciously try to build a circle of safety. In your family, on your team, just take one small risk. Ask for help. Admit you don't know something. Make trust the priority.
This is the question that Simon Sinek discovered in his darkest moment, and it's the question I want to leave you with. It's not an easy question, for sure, but it is the most important one you will ever ask yourself. Finding it, saying it out loud, and then living it. That is the path away from pressure and toward a life filled with purpose. In the end, Simon Sinek built his entire legacy on that one simple, powerful truth. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. His framework literally transformed his own burnout into a systematic blueprint for leadership that any of us can follow. And it's all built on a single, non-negotiable rule that changes everything. Always start with why.